Welcome to the Pro Design Builder podcast, a show where professionals and entrepreneurs share their stories, strategies, and secrets to building a thriving business and a successful life. I'm Sam, your host, as we dive deep into the world of life experiences and entrepreneurship. Before we get started, just wanted to thank our sponsors, the Pro Design Builder, which is a coaching and consulting firm for real estate investors who want to launch spec homes and multifamily projects. The Pro Design Builder, it's not just about building a business, it's about building a vision and a life by design. Also, House Flipping 101 boot camp will be hosted on March 26th and 27th in Tampa. There'll be links in the description. There's also an April date, which is April 16th and 17th in Fort Lauderdale. If you are a real estate investor or you want to learn how it's done from A to Z, House Flipping 101 Boot Camp, there'll be a link in the description. Also, the Nest Collab, which is an incubator for real estate investors who want to learn from experts. We have experts in several different areas, whether it's short sales, whether it's flipping, building, and creative finance. The Nest Collab, there'll be a link in the description for that as well. As you know, foster care is near and dear to my heart. I've fostered a number of kids. I've adopted 2 kids. I'm currently fostering now. If you ever feel led to give to our foster care initiative, feel free to do that. There'll be a link in the description. Some of the things that we support in our foster care initiative is I'm as a primary cook. When someone brings a meal and I don't have to worry about the stress of feeding 6 people now, that's always helpful. So we provide meals for other foster families.
Nice.
Also, we provide beds for foster and adoptive parents. And there's been many occasions where there's a transition. They may not have a bed or a crib, and we will provide something like that for them. Also, we believe in strong families. So we support a strong family unit. So if they can get an additional date night to work on their structure, that's something that we feel like we need to support. So without further ado, just wanted to thank our guest today, Laurane Simon, which is a real estate agent in South Florida. She has also represented builders and developers. She's also an ordained minister, which is something that was new to me, but not new to her. She is working on a 501c called One Hand, One Heart, which is empowerment for young girls that turns into mentorship. So just wanted to say thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Sam, for having me. Excited to be here.
Hopefully I did you justice with that intro.
You did. You covered it.
Okay. If you don't mind, just tell everybody just a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, etc.
So just an extension to the mini bio that Sam wrote. Thank you, Sam, for that.
No
I
problem.
am a South Florida native, born and raised. I left South Florida for just a small period of time to attend the illustrious, world-renowned, historic Florida Agriculture and Mechanical University,
Hello.
also known as FAMU. And so I did my undergrad in Tallahassee for 3 years, graduated, came back home, and got a master's degree in public administration with a focus in nonprofit management at FIU. Went into government, and some way, somehow, life made a big pivot, and I landed in the world of real estate. Not planned, but an area that I absolutely love. So I have been licensed here in the state of Florida for the last March, actually will make it 10 years that I have been in this area. And I also am licensed in the state of Alabama. I had an opportunity to work with a developer there for about 2 years. And COVID happened. I moved back home. I am here. So I am between Birmingham and South Florida in this season because I'm working on a distressed development project in Birmingham now. And I'm actually looking for some more deals there in Birmingham. So I'm here and I'm in Birmingham maybe twice a month.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I never shared this with you, but I remember when you got licensed, right? And I said to myself, I was like, that's perfect for her. That is the
Really?
perfect. I did. I never shared that with you, but I thought that was the perfect lane for you, just because your personality, you're very outgoing, you're a people person. I just thought that was your perfect lane. So
Thank you.
I'm excited for you and excited to see kind of where, God continue to take you in this space because you could help a
Amen.
lot of people. So, so we try to get the backstory. So we always like to start at the beginning. So I wanted to ask you, what were you like as a kid? And then were there early signs of your path today?
I don't even know if there was really an early path or early sign to real estate because really, in all honesty, I never imagined that I would be in this space, but I guess God had different plans and ultimately a greater plan. But
Mm-hmm.
as a kid, Lorraine was still the same person, talkative, outgoing, always in the center of something. I can remember in elementary school always getting in trouble because of my mouth. So I
Uh-huh.
think that as a kid, I always had an advocacy heart, which did not always transition well for adults.
Mm-hmm.
But I can remember in elementary school, because of my mouth, I was invited to be a peer mediator. So I was a peer mediator then that transitioned into middle school. I can remember getting, at the end of the year, you always get like the superlatives, most likely to succeed,
Yeah.
class best dress. In seventh grade at Parkwood Middle School,
Mm-hmm.
I got a superlative for class attorney.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I think
Yeah.
the advocacy heart and
Yeah.
serving people was always there. And I remember my mom was kind of like upset because the kids were like clapping. And
Mm-hmm.
we just had a really great like connection at Parkway Middle School. So we were always cheering for each other. But I can remember my Haitian lady
Mm-hmm.
being upset that that was the award that I got because again, I always got in trouble for my mouth. And
Mm-hmm.
so advocacy has definitely transitioned. So though I did not see myself in this space as being a real estate agent or even dipping into the development side of things, the advocacy still transitions into this day and age. So I thought I was going to become a lawyer. I attended Fort
Mm-hmm.
Lauderdale High School. I was a part of the pre-law magnet program. And that was the trajectory that I was on until I got to undergrad and I saw how much it was going to cost. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, ooh, financially, I don't know if I can front that. And
Mm-hmm.
so being in this space today as a real estate agent, I also have the privilege of sitting on the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, known as NARAB, the South Florida chapter. We have a foundation here and I serve as the president.
Okay.
And this organization fights for democracy in housing and has been around for over 78 years. I think this is our 78th year. And so advocacy has always been at the heartbed of who Laurane was from a young girl, middle age, not middle age, but in my teens to now being a full adult. Advocacy has always shown itself. So in real estate, I am that agent that is going to advocate on the behalf of my clients. If it's the buyer or the seller, I am going to stay up late reading through HOA documents to ensure that my clients are well abreast of what they are obligated to now move into the community and uphold. If we have a hurdle, there's a roadblock, I don't like to take a no as an answer.
Yeah.
So for me, advocacy, it's always figuring out how do I get to that yes on the behalf of my clients. So I will lose sleep figuring the situation out and overcoming hurdles because ultimately my goal is to get that individual who had this big dream of one day becoming a homeowner and thought that it would be impossible. I need that dream to manifest, and whatever it is we need to figure out, let's figure it out to ensure that that individual makes it to the closing table. So to answer your question, advocacy would be exactly what transferred from childhood now into adulthood.
No, then that's a great answer, and because we're friends. Like I've
We
known you
grew up
since
together. You didn't
exactly.
mention that to the people.
Yeah, exactly. We definitely grew up together. I think I knew this pre-law in high school, Lorraine running for class
Yeah,
president,
yeah. I
and
was
and
vice
that's
president. I forgot about that.
yeah, no, exactly. That's where I seen and I knew like this was a great lane for you just because you have the ability to move people, right? And that's a gift, right? And not everybody has that gift. So that's why I said when I saw that you were decided to go into real estate, I was like, this is a perfect lane for her because I just feel like there was gonna sky's the limit, when it came to that. So who would you say was your biggest influence growing up?
Man, the biggest an individual, or can I
It could be
use
several. It whatever it is. It doesn't really.
I have two things that come to mind when you ask that question, right? So Sam
Mm-hmm,
and I grew up together. Not only did we go to the same high school, we also went to the same church. So when you ask that question, who I would say what was my
mm-hmm,
biggest influence?
mm-hmm,
The church growing up for me was a major influence that at the time I didn't recognize that it was an influence. But
mm-hmm.
growing up in the inner city, growing up to a single mom who was raising four kids on her own, the church at the time, not recognizing it then, was really an umbrella. It was a safety net for
It
us.
was.
We
Yeah.
had a really big youth program and we all
Mm-hmm.
got along for the most part. There was always activities going on. And so it really diverted my attention away from the things that could have taken place had I not had the church. So I'm grateful when I look back over my youthful years. I'm grateful for the existence of the Salvation Army. I'm grateful for them taking us in and loving on us the way that they did, and even all
Mm-hmm.
the exposure that we got through our youth program. But I also would credit the history of our culture. Both Sam and I are Haitian as well. And I think that our parents did an excellent job, even though we were in a Western world, a Western society. The root of our existence, our culture was always evident at
Correct.
home. Everything that we did, it was that we knew where we came from, and we stood on shoulders of great men and women who allowed our families to be able to come here and give us a better chance at life. And so to know that I come from a heritage of individuals who are coined and historically known to be the first Black republic on the Western Hemisphere, for me, that was a great influence because I knew that my life was purpose and destined to produce greatness. So though my journey has taken it has been a winding road, unexpected
Everybody.
turns,
Yeah.
right? But I know that whatever seat I sit in, I know whatever position I get the opportunity to uphold, that I have to deliver in excellence because of where I come from. So I
No,
think
I
those two areas would be like my influence to stay focused and grounded.
no for sure. I couldn't agree. With you more. Growing up. In the church and also the youth program. All right. So before I got there, I'll tell you a funny story. Right. I went to my parents' church. Right, and it's a Creole speaking church, and I would fall asleep quite often, and I'd fall asleep, and I didn't have a youth program, and the pastor would embarrass me. I'd be sleeping, but everybody be laughing, and I wake up, and then my mom get upset, right? So I told her that I said, "Hey, listen, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore." She said so, and then my mom got upset. She was like, "What do you mean you can't do this?" But and then my dad goes, "Listen to him. He's telling you exactly what he can't do. He can't do this particular service or whatever." He was like, "Well, then what you want to do? You still got to go to church." And then I was like, well, let me try going to the Salvation Army. And then they would drop me off with my cousin in the morning, and then I would go, to service there. But it was probably one of my favorite time, and probably made my childhood, honestly, just because of how much I was exposed to and had
Mhm.
access to, during that time. So yeah, that was definitely a good time. So was there a defining moment or event in your childhood that shaped you?
Now, when you say childhood, what's the age range? Because I'm still youthful at heart. So
Yeah. You're not a child. Okay. I, I don't know. I 0 to let's say high school, a little middle school, high school. It was there.
middle
Is there a
school and high
defined?
school, a defining moment.
Yeah.
Oh man. I don't know if there was a let me see. There's life, when you think about life and you just take a moment to reflect, life
Hmm.
has lifed.
No, for sure.
Life has definitely been life, but God is ultimately still greater. A defining moment in my childhood.
Or a challenge that you had to overcome that you could look back at now, like that gave you a lot of growth.
I would say so. Coming from what comes to mind is coming from middle school to high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was a pivotal transition in my life because I didn't transition from my middle school and go to the home school of my high school that I should have gone to.
Mm-hmm.
So I left Parkway Middle School and I was supposed to go to Stranahan High School had I gone by the zoning. But because I was going to become this attorney and I got accepted to the Fort Lauderdale pre-law magnet program, I was then bused to the east side of town. So I went from knowing everybody, being the
Mm-hmm.
super extrovert, to having to transition to knowing no one at this school outside of my two cousins, Patrick and Jerry at the time. And I can remember, I can remember freshman year getting ready to start school, and my cousin called and he's like, "Listen, when you go to high school tomorrow, you don't know me." And I was like, "But I don't know anyone." So it's like, if I don't know anyone and you're calling me to tell me that I don't know you because you're upperclassmen,
Oh, geez.
then what? But I can remember, like, towards the end of the school year, first freshman year, him saying, like, "How do you come to a school not knowing anybody? And then
Mm-hmm.
it's your freshman year and you know everybody." And
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did. You got to know everybody very quick, and everybody knew you very quickly.
but I think that that showed me then early on that you create your community. It doesn't
You
matter who
do.
knows you. If they don't know you, they need to know you, right? And so I've
Mm-hmm.
made it my business. It wasn't like working hard to fit in
Yeah.
or find your clique, because we had a lot of cliques in high school, but it
Mm-hmm.
was really just showing up and being myself, knowing freshmen, knowing upperclassmen. It didn't matter to me. I was Laurane and they needed to know me
Yeah.
because why not? So I
Yeah.
think for me that was instrumental, even transitioning that into adulthood, because when I got the opportunity to move to Birmingham, Alabama to work with Valor Homes, the builder, I didn't know anyone in Birmingham. So here it
Mm-hmm.
is. I'm uprooting my entire life from South Florida, moving to a totally just distant city where I have no community, no friends. And within that 22-month period that I had the opportunity to live there, I created this great, sweet community of people that I still talk to today, that I actually am connected to, working on a second deal that I'm looking at now in Birmingham for this year through a realtor that I met while I was there. So that place of being fearful in middle school going to high school
Mm-hmm.
transferred, leaving from Florida going to Alabama, and just creating community, learning how to create community, how to move in spaces, and really connecting with other individuals.
No, no, that's beautiful. That was a transition for me too, and but which I only just started telling this. I was in dropout prevention from the third grade to the eighth grade. Right?
Really?
It that it's
That is
it
news to me, Sam.
it sounds so crazy when people hear that, but I wasn't excelling. I was just in a terrible environment. I wasn't applying myself. But then in the eighth grade, there, I'll tell you what happened. There was a parent teacher conference, and I'm in the parent teacher conference, just really just nonchalant. And what ended up happening is the teacher stormed out, right? And then after that parent teacher that conference, my dad looked at me and then he like smacked me in the back of the head. And then he went home. He told my parents, brother, sister, grandma, auntie, everybody kind of gave it
Whole
to me. I
business.
heard it. I heard it from everybody. And I literally had this turning point moment where I I was like, it's so easy to be bad. This is literally a conversation I had with myself. It's so easy to be bad. Let me try and be good, because
Mm,
being bad is just do whatever pops in your head, right? And I was notorious for just acting on my thoughts. But that's kind of what it's like when you're in survival. So it's easy to just kind of be bad and act on your thoughts. But when I made this switch, and then my grades improved, and then my grades improved so much that I got out of dropout prevention. And then when I went into Fort Lauderdale, it was just, I never looked back. And it
yeah,
was kind of,
we've
that's,
never
I was
known
like,
that.
never would have known. But if I show you my grades, you would have been like, oh yeah, you were there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Well, I guess
crazy.
that slap behind the head woke you up.
No, it woke me. No, it woke me up. All right, there was several of them, and it did wake me up. But you mentioned something now, which has taken me a long time to figure out and to grow, which is community. Because back then, for me, I just kind of just stayed to myself. It was just kind of, I guess, life experiences that kind of showed me something very different when it comes
Mhm.
to people. So to me, I had just, kind of stayed to myself. But now I'm on this big push to grow community because I realized that's where the lack was in my life. So we have foster communities is growing. We have investment communities is growing. We have a bunch of different communities that we're working on. So if you don't mind, just share a little bit more about what are the things that you're doing to kind of grow community wherever you go.
So for me, I think it's about being true to the core of who you are and where you are in this season of life. When I moved to Birmingham, again, I knew no one. So, and I was a single woman in a city alone. It was important for me to create an accountability group and a support group around singleness. And that's literally what I did. I volunteered at the church to start a small group, and they uploaded it into the app. I hosted my first event, and I think I had like 15 girls that I didn't know show up. And when
Hmm.
they showed up, I showed up because
Yeah,
I
okay, okay, okay.
hosted them. So
Hmm.
I had to show up with value. And so the group then went from 15 to like 30, and we met monthly, and it became such an amazing group of women in the season that I needed them. And some of the women went on to get married, so it was beautiful to see how we transitioned through life from that point now into now. And then as of recent, being here post pandemic, the pandemic just really created a lot of isolation.
Correct.
And to break out of that in 2020, this is five, so 23, 23.
Hmm.
I in an extension from Birmingham, there was a community that I was a part of while I was in Birmingham. It was called Coffee and Conversation. One
Uh-huh.
of the realtors connected to Keller Williams, Alicia Webster, had invited me to go out for coffee so we could get to know one another. She told me about the different things that were happening around town, things of that nature. And I just love that one-on-one connection. And I
Hmm.
had told her in that moment, I had a vision, and I had saw that she would be having a bigger group of women as relates to coffee conversation. And that's what happened. So it grew, it developed, and it became a monthly meetup of women. And so, because we were in this post pandemic era of breaking out of isolation, I'm in real estate. There's a lot of other women here in South Florida that are also in real estate, and we need a safe space.
Correct.
Being a realtor, carrying on the issues of life and the high moments of life that your clients bring to you. It's an amazing career, but it also comes with a lot of emotional stuff.
Yeah.
And so we oftentimes just need a space to vent. We need a space to receive encouragement. We need a space to mastermind. What are you doing differently that I'm not doing in my business? Things of that nature. And so, with Alicia's permission, I have extended coffee conversation from Birmingham into South Florida. And so a group of women in real estate, we meet monthly. All the women that come are not necessarily realtors. They're not
Hmm.
even necessarily in real estate. And I would tell you, Sam, 2024,
Yeah.
every time we met, every month, we had
Uh-huh.
different topics of conversation.
Yeah.
It would always be as if it were a scheduled therapeutic session. And
Yes.
it was non-scripted, it was very organic,
Yeah.
but it was something that was needed for that time, and it was a space that was safe. We never had any issues about things that were spoken of, and we
Right.
shared a lot
Of course.
amongst one another. Anything that was
Hmm.
spoken about in that group that left, and these were women that did not necessarily know one another, women that might have seen each other around town in the space of doing business, but never really had opportunity to sit down. So we had an opportunity to wake up on a Saturday morning at 9, meet up at Panera Bread, get coffee, pastries, break bread, talk amongst one another, and share, and really release whatever the heart issue is.
Correct. 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 Correct.
And it has grown from there. So in
Hmm.
this 2025, we're meeting, but the shift now is to women in real estate investing. So March is Women's Month. And so we are going to be hosting a meetup for women that are interested in learning how to get into the investment space. And it's also going to be an opportunity to promote an event that the South Florida Board of Realtors Foundation is going to be hosting rather, as we're highlighting Black women in real estate development. So it's transitioned. So 2025 is more geared towards building up of the woman as relates to her business, her investment strategies, her exit strategy. And I love it. I love community. I
No,
love meeting people.
that's fantastic. Like I said to you, this community thing has been, and I'll tell you exactly what happened, right? It was 2021 and in COVID, and then I discovered this thing that was like staring me right in my face, and I didn't even know that it was a thing. I had issues with a couple of my wife's friends, and I couldn't put a finger on exactly what the issue was, but then I discovered it. It was attached to like my mom, right, and her personality type, and I just didn't want to be controlled or be around anything that would control me. And I realized, and I made that connection because I realized neither one of these people had done anything to me. So then what happened was this sent me to therapy. And once this thing caught me off guard, and it was like big and it was staring at me, I
Mhm.
go, what else did I have to make an adjustment to? Because I've seen a lot, I've experienced a lot. And in therapy, I just kind of dumped it all there. And she was saying to me, she goes, Sam, your story is beautiful. Sam, your story is beautiful. And she's like, the reason that you are disconnected is because no one knows anything about you and you don't share anything to anyone. So no one knows you, right?
Right.
But your heart is good, right? And I was like, oh, that's where the disconnect is. So for me, since then, what has happened is this level of transparency, and because my stuff is not Sesame Street, but it's easier for me to share now, just because I already lived it. So
Yeah.
I have an opportunity to help people now. I've been so connected, and community has kind of just gravitated, towards me. We have 6 or 7 foster families that we do life
Right.
with. We're all on the same mission, doing the work, and we all have the same challenges, and it feels good to have this feeling that
Yeah.
has, been elusive to me, so to speak.
I love that for you. Look
Yeah.
at
So
growth as you walk into 40.
exactly. And even doing this now is part of it, and the level of transparency that I get to, bring to the table has been very helpful as well. And the feedback has been people need it, right? People
Yeah,
need
they
to hear
do.
the types of heart stories that you talk about that allows you to grow, right? So they know that they're not alone, right?
Well,
God
that's where
didn't.
one hand, one heart comes from.
Hmm.
So one hand, one heart. And I audibly heard the Spirit of the Lord speak that into my heart one day years ago. And I heard the Lord said it takes one hand to touch one heart to change the course of someone's life.
Correct.
And so just listening at you sharing and how you're opening up and how you're developing and how you're now building community, and you and your wife are having the foster parents, same struggles, right? But
Hmm.
you guys being transparent and now open to share your story, it's actually touching the heart of another individual that might have been thinking about walking away, or even someone who has been exploring the option of fostering, but they have not yet seen someone that looks like them. And here it is, they see a Sam, and you and your wife have such a powerful story around this space
For sure.
that someone's heart needs your hand to be open to share that,
Yeah.
to literally extend their decision on what they're thinking about around foster care. So I commend you
Thank thank you.
for going to therapy and getting out the
It's all
right
about
stuff
growth.
out.
Yeah, therapy was very helpful in that. And then also too, there was a study that I did called it was Freedom Group study. But anyways, I had a lot of clarity during that time because, I got to ask some really hard questions like, what do I do with some of these experiences that I've had?
Yeah.
And then I realized, and I made the connection, it's attached to the body, and then there's a separation, and then there's spiritual order, and and then I got so much clarity from there. Now I kind of help teach this to other men's Bible studies because I got the
Look at
clarity, yeah,
you.
I'm doing my work, man.
Good stuff.
We're not trying to stand still, so it's been good. So you mentioned One Hand and One Heart briefly, so tell us more about that. That's the organization that you are working on.
Yeah, so I don't know if you know this part about Laurane, but in 2015, I think it was around 2015. So I desired to become a mom, but I wasn't married yet. And
Mm-hmm.
so because I had this urge and this desire to become a mom, and I was having a conversation with one of my girlfriends, she had mentioned to me, she said, well, have you ever considered foster care? Because you worked in the foster care agency. My first job out of FAM was a child investigator with Charlie Homes for Kids. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where my girlfriend and I met. She was actually a client of mine at the time. And she had shared with me, she said, Miss Laurane, you became a mentor to me. And because of your consistency, it helped me to go through life successfully. So when
Uh-huh.
she said that, I just sat in it and I thought about it. I then explored the class to become a foster mom. And then I was licensed before I knew it. And
Mm-hmm.
I was blessed to foster a pair of twins. So beautiful. They were 5 years old, turning 6.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it was such an amazing, life transforming growth season of my life for 15
For
months.
sure. For sure.
Amazing experience. And so when they left and they moved, that was hard. So the fact that you and
Mm-hmm.
your wife are still in it, I commend you
Yeah.
because fostering children that come and then they go, them
Mm-hmm.
leaving, I was heartbroken. Sam, I was crying. I
Yeah.
was sad. I was like, those are my
Sick.
babies.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
it
Yes.
was so hard letting them go. And
Yeah.
so I maintained contact with them, and I still am in contact with them today. And they're now 16, turning 17 in a few months.
Great.
And watching their journey, knowing the backstory of a lot of these children, because
Correct.
I worked in dependency for about 3 years, knowing the backstory and to see how their lives unfold because of the foundation that they come
Correct.
from.
Mm-hmm.
This opportunity to host Letters to Young Girls was an event to be a constant in the lives of children who are abandoned, neglected, and don't have those individuals that are consistent. So we've had an opportunity to host empowerment seminars for the young girls where I recruited my girlfriends that are professionals in their own field, in their businesses, and they agreed to participate and follow the foster girls for at least a minimum of a year.
Yeah.
Because within that year, they would have developed rapport, and
Correct.
longevity is the goal. And
Mm-hmm.
so we hosted empowerment seminars where we, in connection with Forever Young Salon, were able to take the girls to the salon. We got their hairs done. We rented out the private space in the back, had an empowerment seminar, had lunch catered, gave the girls some glam bags.
Yeah.
All of the girls had a specific letter that was written to them because, as you know, they go through the system with what's called the CRR. And
Yep.
so my hope was that wherever it is that they go, whichever house they may leave and go to, that they would always have that letter of empowerment and that memory of that particular event and that time in their lives that someone wrote to them. Because I believe, Sam, wholeheartedly, there's
Yeah.
a life quote that I follow, and it says, children are a message that we send to a time that we may never see.
Yeah.
And so those letters of mentorship and empowerment is a message that I hope we may never see those young ladies again because
Correct.
foster kids have a tendency to bounce, but
Yeah.
that message would resonate and echo into a time that we may never see. So I'm now wanting to focus in on that as it relates to the community work, do a 501c3, be able to get grants and really build that program out more, because that was pre-pandemic, and of course pandemic shut us down.
Yeah.
We didn't do the programming anymore, and so now I really want to bring it back.
No, no, makes sense. I did know that about you. My brother had told me. He was like,
Okay.
"Hey, you know, Lorraine took in twins like a
Yeah.
while ago or whatever," and I never got a chance to talk to you about it. But
One of the
it's
twins was in the real estate office with me 2 days ago. She's like, I
oh,
want
was
to do this. Your phone never stops ringing.
yeah. No, but that's good because you mentioned several things that resonate with me. Obviously, I'm in this. I'm in the trenches, right? That's just kind of how I'm built. And thank God for that. So you mentioned a CRR, right? So the way that I look at that, CRR is pretty much a report of their life and everything that brought them into care and everything like that. So for me, the advantage that I have is when I read their CRR, because I've had so many different experiences, it's
Mhm.
almost like I could place myself exactly where their feet or their experience is.
Mhm.
And the way that we look at it is, we kind of create a recipe for for healing, right? Which is consistency, discipline, a loving home, and especially for me, from a positive male figure that lives what he talks about, right? And having that as the structure is very important. So that's kind of how we read into that. And they do have a number of challenges, and the system does fail them, and then that initial foundation not being there really creates catastrophe later, and they got to kind of find themselves and work on themselves backwards to be whole. So that's kind of some of the things that I hope to talk about. I had a talented young lady on the show, which aged out of foster care, and she was telling about her challenges and stuff like that. It's literally like because of the foundation and not something that you asked for, and not it's a crazy hand that you're dealt.
Yeah.
If you make a mistake, you could quickly find yourself homeless, or or worse, and
Yeah.
that's literally the challenges that I hope to speak to, in my podcast, because these are the answers that we just don't have answers for,
Yeah.
so um so uh okay, so tell me about, well, you said you got into real estate 2010, right? What was
20,
that?
was it 2010? 2015.
2015? Okay. All right. What was that first year like for you as in a
Really? You want
new
to talk
in a
about year
yeah.
one? Who wants to talk about year one? You want to bury your head in the sand and not talk about year one?
well, then you could talk about now, right? Which
No,
is
no, we
very
can talk about
different.
year one because I
Yeah, no,
built,
year one. Go ahead. So tell me about year one for you in growing in that business.
So again, real estate was not a planned career shift. I love to read and have always loved reading. I read a book that then led to, your algorithms will start to recommend books.
Hmm.
And so I don't know why I went back and I picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I had actually had an assignment freshman year at FAMU. We had an assignment to read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and we had to do a synopsis and present our synopsis. And I remember, Sam, this, and then we read this book in African American Studies.
Okay.
And we go to the class, and he walks in and he's like, "You guys did not read it." Now he didn't use those words. There was bleep bleep bleep
Oh,
bleep, a
geez.
lot of bleep bleeps. He said, "You guys did not do the homework," and we're like,
Oh,
"Yes, we
man.
did. Like we
Mhm.
have our papers. We're ready for the presentation because the HBCU culture is big on how you present." And
Oh,
so he's like, "No, y'all did it. Y'all didn't do the homework." And so he took his briefcase, old school, still carried a briefcase. He took his briefcase, slammed it on the desk. He's like, "There is no class today because y'all didn't do the homework. Had you guys done that homework, this class would have been empty. You guys would have been dropping out." Now, mind you, remember we graduated 2003.
yeah,
So this is fall of 2003 going in '04.
yeah.
Remember, this whole situation is going on where they are sending troops away. The economy is looking like it's on the up, but we're on the verge of a collapse, not yet knowing it, right? And so he said that you guys are going to graduate. Now, this is in the fall of 2003. He said, you guys are going to graduate with more debt than you'll be able to pay off. Your families can't afford to have you in college. You're trying to make a statement and you don't have a statement to be made. Had you guys done the homework, you would drop out of college now and go and launch a business because the economy is about to tank. And so I'm 18 at the time.
Yeah,
and
you're
we're all
confused.
just
Yeah.
confused. We're mute. We're in an auditorium filled with students who are ready to present. And he takes his briefcase and he walks out of the classroom.
Very dramatic.
Very dramatic and highly upset.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And so fast forward from the fall of 2003, the one time that I touched that book, the book comes back to me in 2014, and I read the book. And in reading the book, the light bulb for real estate came about because I had bought my first property in 2009. I had read an article. It said now is the best time. And I was like, the economy just collapsed. But the article said now is the best time. And I bought a house. And so I loved the experience. I loved connecting with my realtor. She too was new at the time. And she's now she closed a $14 million deal, like one deal, right? 14 million. Where some people aim for that to be their yearly goal. Biggie closed a $14 million deal. Wow. And so I saw her moving as a new agent. And so I had opportunity to literally learn with her. And I just loved everything about the exposure and the experience. And so I wanted to become a realtor. And, when you have a vision or you have a desire, sometimes it's best to keep it to yourself. The older version of myself knows that now, because at the time, just sharing it with others, oh no, this is not the right time to get into real estate. The economy is terrible. This is not it. But if I knew, what's the saying? If I knew then what I know now, the decisions that I would have made differently, right?
Of course.
And so in hindsight, I wanted to start then, but I didn't. I went to grad school and instead picked up $40,000 of debt.
Yes.
And, went into the professional corporate world. But that book came back to me in 2014 while I was at the office working. And I said, you know what? I'm going to get my real estate license. I'm going to purchase multifamilies. My mom retirement is going to be on me. And I'm going to have investments. And I'm going to be an investor. So that's where this whole investment idea came from, reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad again. So I studied, took the test, January 2015, got my license. And then I hung my license in March of 2015. And that first year, amped up, empowered, I sold one property.
But at least you got one. Yeah.
So I got licensed in January. I quit my corporate job in February, and that was not planned. Working in corporate was tough, and this was government. So for me, I just knew that this was my space. I'm in government. I'm going to matriculate and become the director one day. I love social services. I love human services. And I was out of grad school. I qualified and I was going to learn this space. But that didn't happen because we transitioned directorship. And you know how that goes. You transition. They want to bring their own people in. They shake things up. And she was mean and didn't like me.
Oh, man.
You don't like Laurane? Like, how do you not like me? And so it was rough working with that lady. Oh my gosh. So one day, totally not planned, Sam, she was reprimanding me about something that was so I don't even remember. I remember why. But it was extreme. She puts her finger in my face. I get up out of the office and I said, no, we're not doing this today. So my position is third in command. So I'm the administrative analyst. We have the assistant director and then the director.
Yeah.
So I go to the assistant director and I told her I can't do this anymore. She says, I know she's mean, but suck it up. You need this check.
Ooh, okay.
And she said that to me 3 times. She reminded me that you're fostering these girls. You need this check. You're helping your mom out. You need this check. So just suck it up. You need this check. So here I am in her office, Sam, and I was like, you know what? It's time out for me quoting scripture. Now it's time for me to live. I don't even know where that came from. I'm like 27, 28 at the time. And so I
Yeah.
said to her, I serve a God who is, first I was whispering. I'll never forget, I was whispering.
Oh geez,
I
this was
serve a God.
this was stirring you up.
Stir me up.
She got you nice, right?
He did put a finger in my face. I serve a God who is
Yeah.
able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that I could ask. I am not taking it. And I stormed out of the office. And then I quit. I got in the car, like text my brother. I text a few people, like, I quit today.
This
And
sounds
then,
like a movie. This
oh
sounds
my
like a
gosh,
movie.
the dramatics. I went home. Haitian lady was like, no,
Oh
you
my
cannot do it
goodness.
like that. So I had to give them a 2-week notice. And I'll never forget when I went back that next weekend, the irony of it, now that we're talking about this, it was Valentine weekend. Never forget about it. So,
Mm-hmm.
and this is Valentine weekend. So I'm seated in my office, and the director comes and she stands in the doorway. She said, well, we received your resignation. And she said, and what do you think you're going to do? And I said to her, I have no idea. I'm going with God. She laughed, Sam. She said, ha, you'll be back.
Oh my goodness. This is good.
So Sam,
Yeah.
my mom told me to give them 2 weeks. I could not.
You could not.
The millennial in me could not.
Yeah.
And so I left. And though that year, because it happened at the top of the year,
Yeah.
and I hung my license in March.
Yeah, it was a tough year.
And, I was feeling empowered. March is Women's Month. And I'm going to be a realtor. And I sold one property that year. Thank God for savings.
Yeah.
And my mom goes, ukwe, right? Translation. She said, you think this is what you're supposed to be doing? And so I was determined, Sam, to figure it out. So I sold one property the first year. I sold 8 the second year. So now I'm okay.
Yeah. Now you got your groove.
Yeah. So I was young, and at the time I thought I was doing it, working with the city, making $57,000 for the year. So by the third year, I had made my first 6 figures, and I was like, "What?
Yeah, exactly.
Going back where and why?"
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Yeah, that don't
I'm
make no
giving
sense.
hope to families who always wanted to walk into home ownership. And I am that liaison. I'm the individual that can hold their hand and take them through that. I'm not going back. So for me, because I had a love of social service, I found that love in serving families. I found that love in opening up doors. I found that love in connecting them with down payment assistance and the lenders that would make it happen, and the title companies. So I fell in love with the process of home ownership because I still was in service of my community. And so, listen, we're celebrating 10 years next month. There is never a going back. It's only
no, I know. I saw, like, right before we came on here, I had clicked on your profile, and then I saw it said 2025 capper, and you already capped out. I'm like, she is not playing.
Not playing. This has been January was a great, like, 2025 is the year of harvest. So January has been great. February is rolling. Like, I'm grateful. I'm truly grateful for where my business is today.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. That's the type of stories that, we love to hear, right? You struck out on faith, wasn't completely planned, but that determination as a entrepreneur, because you at that time you are working for yourself, right?
Completely.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's probably the best thing that could have happened to you, right?
Because no one was coming.
No one was coming. Yeah, exactly. So no, that's a great story. And I think a lot of people could learn and grow from that, right? And you've kind of taken that into so many different directions and relationships and creating, coffee and, conversations and, and all these other, beautiful things that I see coming from you. So what would you say is your best words of advice if someone wanted to jump into real estate like you're doing now?
So for new agents that I connect with, my first question to them is always, what is your why? Like, why are you in this space, right? Even for you now entering into the space of podcasts and having these interviews, you have a clearly defined why you're in this space. And I think that when an individual transitions into any endeavor, there has to be a reason outside of a dollar.
Correct.
Because if you're running after the dollar, there's no substance behind what you're doing. You can become wealthy rich through that desire for money, but then what? Right. And so for new agents coming into the business, I'm always asking that question. What's your why? Because this business is hard. This endeavor is difficult. This endeavor can really tire an individual out, and you can't throw in
Correct.
the towel and look back and go into the direction that you just came from, where I knew I wasn't going back to corporate government rather. So that would be my word of encouragement to anyone stepping out on faith and doing whatever it is that they have purpose in their heart to do, remembering and always keeping your why in front of you.
Correct.
Real estate or whatever profession, that is always going to keep you when the times get tough. That's always going to keep you when the goal doesn't look like it's manifesting the way that you
Correct.
saw it or desired for it to go. Remembering and keeping that why in front of you gets you up in the morning before the alarm clock. You know, you go to bed thinking and anticipating about what tomorrow is going to bring. You begin to map out, how do I get to that destined end that I desire? Because I know why this door of opportunity opened for me.
No,
So
I
that would
couldn't.
be my word of encouragement for them. Keep that why in front of you.
No, I agree with you. It was COVID. This was like one of the first books that I read. It was called Start with Why.
Oh,
Right.
nice.
And have you read that or no?
I haven't.
Okay, but anyways, all right, I'll tell you about it. So Start with Why was one of the first books that I read, and after that book, I felt like I grew, right? And essentially, it talked about anything that you're doing. If you recenter it back on your why, you'll have the kind of the answers or the guide to. And I was recently going through a phase, and I had to ask myself, does this fit my why? Right. And I actually went back to the book and I read it, and I kind of got some clarity on it and stuff like that. And I had to make some challenging decisions, but I realized that what I was doing didn't currently fit my why. Right. My why had grown. It was still my why, but it had grown in a different direction, and it wasn't chasing a check. So I had to refocus my center back on the why, which is kind of what this podcast is about too. It is about growth. It's about, foster care. It's about entrepreneurship. It's about really helping people overcome challenges. These are all things that has happened, to me, and I realized that I want to focus on investing in people. So that was kind of the why, and that's the focus, and that's the direction that I'm heading. So, and when it comes into the coaching space, and when it comes to investing, I get to invest in people and help them grow and push them along, and also help them grow, in a bunch of different ways. So that's kind of so
investment is always about growth, right? We always want to know what's the ROI.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's good.
Exactly, for sure. So one of the questions that I always ask at the end is, what is your biggest lessons learned from life and in business?
Ooh, life, my God.
Mm-hmm.
So life for me, right? I'm going to be 40 this July. When did it all happen?
I know. That's this year for me too.
So one thing that I would say is seasons come and seasons go, seasons change. I think if you allow, life has taught me, if you allow yourself to become trapped by a certain season, you will miss the transition and what's happening beyond that, right? Being an entrepreneur, you can plan, you can work your field, and sometimes it just doesn't produce at the time in which you desire for it to produce.
Yeah.
But guess what? The season changes. You have to continue to grow and know and remember that that seed that you planted is still in this time of germination, and
Correct.
its season to manifest is coming. So for me, staying focused in my lane, in my area, and not jumping ship because it was a hard season, it was a non-producing season, but I knew my why, and I know that this is the space that I'm supposed to be in.
Yeah.
that I knew that the seeds that were planted early are going to germinate and they're going to manifest in the right time that they're supposed to. Staying focused, giving it time to grow, giving yourself time to grow in that space as well is very important. It's great to be in a space of entrepreneurship, but I often find that we can become distracted by the glitz and the glams of what it looks like on that side. And we
Yep.
forget what we're doing or called to do over here. So
Mhm.
life has taught me that. And that's a saying that we hear now quite often: life is lifing. And it is. And I think that life is our greatest teacher. It
For
comes
sure.
to teach us a lesson, but what we do as individuals and how we implement the lessons that we learn from life is really what's going to matter most. So
Correct.
life can throw all the blows that it decides to blow. That it decides to throw, but I am taking those lessons, taking a step back, learning those lessons, implementing them into my life so I can see a better outcome in the
Correct.
next season of my life. And so if I could encourage anyone, I would say that know your why, know the seeds that you planted in yourself, in your business, in your family, in your community. They have to germinate and they will manifest at the right time that it's supposed to manifest. This
Correct.
is February, and at the beginning of February, Sam, I felt so inspired. I was like, I could do this and get paid for it. I took a day and I
Yeah.
was like texting people. I was sending inspirational music and just
Yeah.
I was like, somebody need to pay me because I'm on the
Yeah.
road today,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But
Yeah.
I was texting and sending messages to certain friends and family members, and I was hashtagging Focus February.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really believe, I heard someone say this long ago, if you can survive January and February, you're going to march right in to a spectacular year. And
Yeah.
so we oftentimes create these big goals for the year. We come up with these vision boards for the year, and then we
Yeah.
get a little distracted come February and we're ready to jump ship. And in March, we're not seeing it. By the summer, it's gone. The idea is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the year, we're picking it up to try to go back and fix what we didn't do.
Yeah.
So stay focused. Those seeds are germinating and the set time for manifestation is coming. So
For sure.
that would be what I would share with your audience.
No, that sounds amazing. That
Life
sounds
has taught
amazing.
that.
No,
Don't
no, no. It is. It's about that's what his lessons learned, right?
yeah.
Each hurdle is a lesson that you could choose to receive it, learn from it, and then you grow from it. Yeah, everything in life provides that level of opportunity. So you're not a victim, it's opportunity that you learn from. Life happens for you, not to you. Right. So
Yeah.
that was one of the biggest things that, because I am an avid reader, that I discovered last year. It was a big nugget. So I'm dropping that nugget on you right now. Life happens for you, not to you. Right. So you got to receive those challenges, receive those lessons. What were you supposed to learn from it? Now you got to use that, pushing yourself forward. So
Yeah.
No, great interview. Just wanted to say thank you for coming on and blessing us. And thank
Thank you
you
for
for,
having me.
yeah, no problem, right?
I
It
was
wasn't
like,
that
I'm not
hard.
prepared,
No,
but
it
this
was
is literally just a conversation.
it's just a conversation. Make it nice and easy. So thank you for joining the Design Builder. It's not just about building a business, it's about building a vision and a life by design.